All right, so I know I'm a little late, but this was another versus battle held at Madison Square Garden that celebrated two New York hip hop artists who both had significant runs in the late 90s and 2000s. Fat Joe, who represents the South Bronx, began making music much earlier than Ja Rule in the early 90s, although Fat Joe has managed to find a way to stay relevant throughout every era in his hip hop career. Whether we are talking about his early to mid 90s work with DITC, Big Pun in the late 90s, and Terror Squad in the 2000s, or even his more recent work with Lil Wayne, DJ Khaled, and Dre, Fat Joe has been able to adapt with the times and put out quality music for the most part, although I personally don't care for his most recent material as much. Ja Rule, on the other hand, can be credited for paving the way for the singing rappers. No, he wasn't the first, but he definitely took that particular style of sing-song rap to the next level as one of the most successful commercial hip hop artists. Love him or hate him, but you can't deny Ja Rule's dominance in the rap game from about 1999 to around 2003. Sure, as someone who is more of a traditionalist and a fan of hardcore street and grimy hip hop, Ja Rule was never a go-to artist for me. I'm not gonna front like I was ever a big Ja Rule guy, but the fact remains that he has a large volume of hits that appeals to a wide variety of listeners. The man knows how to make hits, so even if he isn't your cup of tea musically, you cannot deny his impact and his contributions. But with that being said, we got a lot of rounds to cover, so let me get to it. Round one, Flojo versus It's Murder. So this was a difficult round to decide upon because both songs were significant to the beginning stages of each artist's career. Flojo was Fat Joe's first big single in 1993 when he was known as Fat Joe the Gangsta. And It's Murder is one of Ja Rule's grittiest and darkest records from his catalog. This is the Clue tape era Ja Rule with DMX and Jay-Z. I ended up siding with Flojo, but I could totally see someone choosing It's Murder. I actually love both records. Round two, My Lifestyle versus Can I Get a. Here we have a hardcore banger produced by Buck Wild from Fat Joe's Jealous One Still Envy album. The production from Buck Wild still goes hard and it's a certified Fat Joe banger. While Can I Get was a hit from Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life Volume 2 and it represented Ja's initial rise in popularity, I don't personally think it's as good of a song as My Lifestyle. Sure, commercially it was more well known, but it just doesn't feed my hip hop soul as much as My Lifestyle. Round three, I Shot Your remix versus Murdergram. So at this point in the battle, Ja Rule had asked Fat Joe if he had ever written his features, and this was a dagger and a low blow thrown at Joe, and I think it stung, especially given Fat Joe's ghostwriter rumors. But Joe responded aggressively with his verse from LL's classic "I Shot Your Remix." It's straight out of the Jadakiss versus playbook. Fat Joe was forcing Ja to play the limited amount of hardcore material that he has, as Murdergram was essentially a part two to his Murder from the Belly soundtrack. I could understand this round going either way, as I really dig both tracks, but I feel that Fat Joe's dramatic and high energy performance put this over the top for me. Round four, Fat Joe's freestyle to Shook Ones and The Enemy versus Holla Holla. This was another tough round for me to decide upon because I didn't expect Fat Joe to go into his DITC bag, which I'm grateful that he did. Big L, rest in peace. And the freestyle to the Shook Ones beat was a nice touch, even though it's obvious that he got his whole inspiration to do this from Jada during the Dipset battle. That being said, I ended up going with Holla Holla since it was Ja's first big single that still received love on the streets. Round five, Annie Up remix and Twins 98 verse Between Me and You. So naturally, Fat Joe brought out Remy for this performance, and Ja clowned him as a result, but I had always been a fan of the Twins song with Pun, and I think Remy did a good job here of rapping Pun's verses. I am going with Fat Joe on this round because the hardcore hip hop side of me won't let me do otherwise. And I felt Joe and Remy's performances were solid. Round 6, All the Way Up verse Living It Up. Now I know this is regarded as a Fat Joe smash hit banger, but I never personally cared for it all that much. I do have the feel good anthem Living It Up beating out All the Way Up. If I am comparing two commercial anthems, the Ja Rule song is just innately better. All the Way Up was always a little too corny in my opinion. Round 7, John Blaze and Still Not a Player verse Down Ass Bitch. I mean, these are two totally different vibes. John Blaze is probably a top 10 posse track of all time, and Down Ass Bitch is a sing-song radio hit. If I'm looking at this round through a traditional hip-hop lens, and I'm definitely going with Fat Joe, it's pretty obvious that younger fans and casual listeners aren't gonna know shit about the significance of John Blaze. Round 8, Haha Slow Down verse Put It On Me. Now, I always thought that this was a slept-on banger from Fat Joe, but it was clearly no match for Lil Mo and Ja's Put It On Me. I will personally play Haha Slow Down way more than I ever would Put It On Me, but you can't deny the larger than life status of such a record. Round 9, Don Cartagena versus Thug Lovin'. Joe was pretty hell-bent on staying street and sticking to his hip-hop roots still at this point in the battle, but when going up against someone like Ja Rule, it probably wasn't the best idea. Playing a track like Don Cartagena that only real hardcore Fat Joe fans know of, even though I personally like the song, probably wasn't the wisest move to make. I'm ultimately going to go with Thug Lovin' because Don Cartagena didn't hit the same in this versus. It's still a good song though. Round 10, All I Do Is Win remix versus So Much Pain. So at the end of the first half is where we start to see Fat Joe abandoning the street route to go with more of his gimmicky hits. The All I Do Is Win record sounds dated as ever. This was always a tacky track in my opinion to begin with, and it even sounded worse during the battle. I'm not really sure how I feel about Ja getting on his Tupac shit, but that song is 20 times better than that trash ass Khaled record. Fat Joe then requested to take an intermission and ended up getting clowned for it, and what makes matters worse, he returned with this super trash fit. The second half is where we begin to see Ja Rule completely dominating. He's playing his top 10 records while Joe is faltering by playing his questionable commercial song. Round 11, The Crown and It Ain't Funny verse Sunshine the Light. So this was a pretty clear-cut Ja Rule win because this Fat Joe song was really mid. Sure, the Luther sample was good. It's hard to fuck that up, but they managed to mess this song up by having that synthetic sounding hook that was just devoid of any soul. Round 12, Down For You verse So Excited. I don't even recall hearing this Fat Joe record prior, but it's awful. I'm not even necessarily big into the Ja Rule song, but So Excited is such a generic track. Round 13, Destiny outro verse Yes. To keep it a buck, I'm not too familiar with this Ja song, but it's a lot better than the cookie cutter bullshit anthem. Yes, this is Dubai Joe, DJ Khaled Joe, and I don't think anyone's really gravitating to when he embraces this sound. Round 14, Rainy Days versus Another Round. This was another Fat Joe song that I don't remember, or perhaps I blocked it out because it was so cheesy. The Ja and Mary record easily wins the round. Round 15, Clap Back versus I Won't Tell. It was here that Ja Rule decided to turn up the heat by playing this slept on 50 Cent diss. I haven't heard it in years, but the beat is fire. I'm not sure why Fat Joe would respond by playing an R&B record, after something like Clap Back. But yeah, Ja Rule definitely body bagged them. Round 16, I Cry versus Get It Poppin'. I did want to give Fat Joe the benefit of the doubt here because this was a pretty popular song, but then he decided to bring Nelly out for an atrociously sung version of hot in here afterwards for no good reason. It was just completely unnecessary, and as a result, I had to give the round to Ja. Round 17, Mesmerize versus What's Love. This was finally a round where the two were matched up pretty well, but if I had to choose between the two, I am going with What's Love. Ashanti, of course, came through and delivered for both. Round 18, Always on Time versus Make It Rain. Now, obviously, a song like Always on Time was a huge smash with that sentimental appeal, but I personally rock with Make It Rain a little more, as I just think it's a good overall banger and strip club anthem from Fat Joe. Round 19, I'm Real versus Lean Back. So you had two commercial smashes. Lean Back is a certified club classic, whether you like it or not. And I'm Real is one of Ja's biggest records, although I'm personally going with Lean Back because it's grimier. Round 20, New York. They performed this one together, and it was a pretty standout moment in the verses. Jada, the versus king, even came through for his feature. So for my final scorecard, I have Ja Rule winning 12 rounds and Fat Joe 8. Did I think this was a complete blowout or that Fat Joe got smoked? No, I didn't, but I do understand that is an unpopular opinion to take. I still have Ja Rule winning this versus battles, not because I feel he's a better artist or because I listen to him more, because I definitely don't, but it's because his stage presence was much sharper than Joe's, and I feel Fat Joe really shortchanged himself by playing some of his tackier and weaker songs in the second half of the battle. Fat Joe relied too heavily on his post 2010 material in much of the second half, and let's face it, that wasn't really the best era that I feel he could have pulled from. The crowd also appeared to side with Ja even since the beginning of the battle. It seemed like Ja was just naturally better at moving the crowd. It's pretty clear that Fat Joe thought it would behoove him to, embrace Jadakiss's tried and true versus formula for at least the first half of the battle, and consequently, I have him winning most of those rounds as a result. Now, it was towards the latter portion of the first half where I began realizing that Joe wasn't even playing some of his dopest street anthems. Why play a song like Dawn Cartagena when you could play anthems like King of New York, Definition of a Dawn, Prove Something, Opposites Attract, or really any of his classics from Jealous One's Envy, No Shit Is Real Remix, Success, or Envy Joe? Ultimately, I didn't love this matchup at the end of the day. Even though Fat Joe has a wide variety of hits, he is still very much a hardcore hip-hop artist at his core. Whereas Ja Rule always walked that fine line between rapping and singing. They're two completely different types of artists. Fat Joe really just lacks the pop and universal appeal of someone like Ja Rule. Yeah, I found this to be still an entertaining battle to watch, as both Ja and Fat Joe brought out those comedic elements. Fat Joe is a pretty good shit talker, not quite as good as Jadakiss, and surprisingly, Ja was quick-witted and able to get in some jabs that I feel really stung and made Fat Joe look a bit foolish. Again, overall, weird matchup, but it was good to see both of these legends get their flowers, because whether you love them or hate them, they're both legends. Let's be clear. Now it is time for another region to get some versus love, because I feel it's been all about New York as of late. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this battle. What did your scorecard look like? It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out. But be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. Fat Joe, Ja Rule versus Battle 1.